recent experience of our British allies and their 16 Marines held hostage by Iran. Sparing the lives of those 16 Marines was wonderful. But what about the next 16 and the 16 after that? At what point does diplomacy encourage more adventurism from Iran or any other potential enemy? And keep in mind that that event occurred just before the changing of the British administration, and timing is not done by Iran by chance. On July 4th of last year, the North Koreans tested a missile system with Iranians observing. Many experts say that Iran is still a few years away from a nuclear weapon. Since the North Koreans have the atomic weapon and need the money, and the Iranians have the money but need the atomic weapons, the real measure of Iran having a nuclear weapon could potentially be measured, not in years, but by flight or sailing time from North Korea to Iran. Our inaction decades ago is one of the reasons the problems are so great today. Ask yourself, how many lives lost to terrorism since the American embassy in Iran was taken in November of 1979 would still be with us today had we responded to the Ayatollah both swiftly and with great lethality, that instead of being concerned with making him mad, we had been far better served ensuring he learned never to make the United States mad. Inaction in the next administration will make the cost of action even greater in subsequent administrations. Finally, in walking away from the fight with Islamo-Fascism, you not only send a message of weakness to your enemies, you send the same message of weakness to your friends. The countries of Bulgaria, Estonia, Hungary, Kazakhstan, Latvia, Poland, Slovakia, and Ukraine have all taken casualties in Iraq. They all happen to be former Soviet satellites, and minus Kazakhstan, new members of NATO, with Ukraine being an associate member. When the Spanish left Iraq after the Madrid bombing, what do you think they told their NATO ally Poland about Spanish resolve in securing freedom and the strength of Western Europe? I would surmise something along the lines of, you first. I assure you that the Poles and the other former Eastern Bloc countries I mentioned, who see a resurgent Russia on their eastern borders, want to be a part of NATO, not because the French were going to come to their aid, but because the United States and other great allies like Great Britain had demonstrated their resolve in blood. Other allies like Thailand and Australia and what they see in Southeast Asia, El Salvador, who sees a Daniel Ortega-led neighbor in Nicaragua, or what the South Koreans see across the demilitarized zone. The day after the election this past November, President Musharraf of Pakistan saw weakness with liberals coming to power. He therefore rescinded our unmanned aerial vehicle overflight privileges over Western Pakistan. When we show fear or weakness at home, our friends who live with the reality of where they are encouraged to abandon us. This is not just true for countries, it is true for elected officials. And let me be brutally honest here. This past March, a Republican senator referred to us and the grassroots Republicans and average citizens as bigots. While that is clearly incorrect and a misjudgment, it reveals a greater strategic problem we have within our party. We have far too many in leadership positions, more concerned with fearing our political opposition than they are with fearing us, the hard-working Republican base. Let me close with two thoughts for you to consider when making your choices among the presidential candidates. Should you visit the Birdwells to watch a movie, you'll have a choice of about 40 of John Wayne's best. While the storylines are fictitious, there is much wisdom in his plain spokenness. In his final movie, The Shootist, while giving Ron Howard a shooting lesson and explaining why he had won so many fights, Mr. Wayne gives us the executive summary of courage and leadership. Be it what Christ demonstrated going to the cross, the galvanizing force of our founders in 1776, and Texans in 1836. While you watch this 27-second clip, listen carefully and ponder the decisions before our nation and the man we must seek to nominate.